Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. I am, as always, Chat Show. We're coming to you not so live, but live for us. I think we're all breathing pretty good here on a Wednesday in the noon hour from the Earwolf Studios in Hollywood, California.
Across from the Arby's.
Across from the Arby's, which I'm surprised you waited that long to say it.
It was the first thing out of my mouth.
I'm surprised that's not in their title. Earwolf Studios across from the Arby's.
Yeah, well, actually it is.
Oh,
it's on their website. That's the voices of Sam and Jamie. Yes, it's true. For the first time ever doing an audio-only podcast from Earwolf, I'm joined by Sam and Jamie.
The both of us.
The both of us.
The both of you, yeah.
I was here for the Paul Reiser.
Yeah, you were.
Which is a coincidence because I'm here for the David Harbour one.
That will season 2 connection.
Yeah. Oh,
we
nice.
will talk all things about that.
Yeah.
And Sammy, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to finally be in town during one of these.
Right?
Yeah.
You travel too much, I think.
More than I'd like. I'm very lazy.
Yeah. Well, I travel a lot because I'm very lazy.
No, I travel against my will.
I see.
Is what I'm
He
saying.
wants to travel less.
How do you enjoy the masses in general when they gather at the airport?
I'm not a fan.
Not a fan.
Not
I
a
want to
fan.
hear
Interesting.
one
Just one.
Sam Levine
Just one.
airport system.
Yeah, we just have time
Just
for one.
Just one airport system that I have
system
for the airport.
I want to hear one Sam Levine.
Here's my system. It's
Okay.
not so much a system. It's just as in. So I have TSA pre-check.
I'll say.
So what I'm doing is when I'm in the whatever car is taking me to the airport, by the time I get out of the car, I've already taken my cell phone out and put it in my bag. I've already removed my belt and put that in my bag and my watch, all the metal things on me. So
Before
by the
you get
time-
out of the car?
Right. So that by the time I exit the car, I don't have to think about anything. I am ready to get in that.
I do a little
pre-check
bit
line.
of that. I make sure like my ID is like out and in my back pocket.
Yeah, that's
By the time I exit
that's
the car.
yeah. I'm going to make a lot of noise with this just because
No, I
it
thought
makes
you were
me happy.
Clubbing a seal over there.
Why me?
Yeah.
Jew. Hey, quiet, seal.
Because what I have no tolerance for is people who don't realize that they have to remove the metal things until they're about to walk through the metal
absolutely.
detector.
Well, it's just
You fool.
just the general lack of awareness of your surroundings. That's one of the big ones, I think, for Jamie and I. It is the general rule of most people.
It's a little lack of awareness, and I think that there's the few people that are like to plead ignorance so they can try to get away with things. There's a little bit of that.
Yeah,
I see a little bit of that.
Yeah. That seems like you're talking about your mom. Let's welcome our guest today.
I mean, I
don't
see
want
it happen at
to
airports
sit him
all
waiting
the time.
too long. Write to us, won't you please? kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. Check out all the shows on Earwolf, of course. Recent guests, you ask? All right, settle down. Brian Cranston, Billy Bob Thornton, Jennifer Tilly, the wonderful Jen Tilly, Christopher Guest, Lauren Graham, and, of course, Ricky Gervais. What's that? Yeah, Ricky was
And
on.
Greg Kinnear. We just had Greg Kinnear.
We just had Greg Kinnear,
That was a
yeah.
great
Wonderful, delightful, who's worked with our guest today, who will talk to him about that. Upcoming guests, Pamela Adlon, Louis Anderson, and more. And congratulations to, before we get to our guest side of the event, which I can't wait to hear his experience from the Golden Globes, because I was not allowed in the room as a mere reoccurring actor on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel while we took down the motherfucking trophy. Congratulations to all the cast and crew on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. First time at the plate, pulling off the... what do you need? 30 votes at the Golden Globes out of the 129 members voting? So we got our 32 votes, and we pulled off the victory, and also to Rachel Brosnahan. Her first nomination and Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Comedy Series. Fucking amazing. I, however, again, not allowed in the room. So
Next year, though.
series regular, season 2, there it is. Boom. So excited about that. Let's find out what it was like to be at a table, at the Netflix table. Please welcome David Harbour back to this show.
Hey. Thank you very much.
Now, were
Thank
you
for
at the
having me.
table with Ted?
No,
He was at a different table,
No.
like-
Ted's with the movie stars. Ted's with the big people. I saw him down because he's down because the funny thing about the Golden Globes is it's still the striation of the old I consider TV to be on after post The Sopranos, TV is as prestige as film. No,
Some would argue better.
Right.
Yes,
the
someone
Golden Globes do not agree with that position. The Golden Globes, there is the movie stars are down on the floor right next to the podium, and then the TV stars
Slightly elevated.
are elevated and behind. So you'll notice on your ticket it's table 114 as opposed to table 14.
Oh, wow.
And then of course there's table 214. which is
Another
reserved
tier.
for.
That's in the parking lot.
Yeah.
That's where I would have been.
No, that's where we parked to go to the after party.
To get onto a shuttle to go to the after
We
party.
like tailgating out there with like a big old
Us
keg.
and Wayne Fetterman.
Perfect, of course.
Oh man. So Ted's down with the movie stars.
Ted's down with the movie stars. Yeah, he was sitting next to I think Angelina Jolie.
As he should be.
Yeah, of course.
If you're gonna write those checks.
But he did occasionally come back and talk to us to give the nice shoulder.
He is an unbelievably nice guy. He's
Super.
one of the.
I mean, yeah.
It's weird how nice he is.
Yeah, he's like a really terrific, nice guy. I mean, I'm always terrified of my boss in any sort of situation. And always this thing comes out in me of like desiring to please in some way or something. So I'm very uncomfortable around him, but it's not his fault by
really
any
isn't.
stretch. It's my neurosis.
Yeah, he's done nothing to
Exactly.
to create that
he
feeling.
tries to alleviate it,
Yeah.
and then eventually just has to give up.
I
because
have
it's
to
just-
say he's the most chill CEO or whatever his title is.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard too, like the
ever.
way he decides on shows. Like, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that the bottom line is just if Ted Sarandis goes like, yeah, that sounds cool, I want to do that, let's do that.
Right.
And they just give you a bunch of money and do a show.
Right.
Like, I don't know, like they do run the numbers and they do certain things, but at the end of the day, it's just whether or not he thinks it's cool to do.
Yeah, there was an episode of South Park based on this
Oh,
season.
really?
Yeah,
Yep.
where
Oh, wow.
Netflix was just greenlighting everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Hello, Netflix. What's your pitch?
Yes. Oh, you're green.
No,
light.
it was
greenlit.
hello, Netflix,
Yeah.
you have a green light. Who is this? I mean, they really did go out of the way. But it's funny to make fun of giants that are so successful.
As South Park can do
Yeah.
great. Do
Yeah.
best.
I mentioned I was not at the Amazon table because
We were not near you guys either. You guys were way across from us. We were on two different sides.
oh, I don't doubt that. What's weird is that Jeff Bezos was actually in my seat at the table. Bezos
wow.
was at the table.
Well,
I don't
guess
think he was in your seat.
well,
I think his wife was in your seat.
Or Kevin Bacon also was in my seat.
But I know they were really behind, like the campaign was really behind you guys to win
They
that
did
award.
a very good job.
Yes, and it was
did
like
a very
very
good job.
clear all over the world that they were, and it succeeded, in spades. I haven't seen the show, but I hear
heard.
it's wonderful from you,
Yeah,
most of all. And I hear your work is extraordinary. And it,
From me?
yeah, from you. And but
hilarious.
no, I actually know Rachel too,
Right,
pretty
right,
well.
of
We
course,
did
New
a
York.
show. We did Manhattan together in Santa Fe, New Mexico for it was this show called Manhattan.
And then
the entire
naturally-
first season, I was you basically. I was the guy who wouldn't be invited. I was recurring for like 11 out of 12 or something.
my
But they
God.
still paid me 35 cents an episode because I wasn't a series regular. But I was out there in Santa Fe the whole time with Rachel and John Hickey and it was Tommy Shlami's show.
Oh, wow.
And so I know Rachel very well. And in fact, and she is New York. Like I saw her in Othello in New York recently, and she's just great. Like she's just like a lovely person too.
Yeah.
And what she does, which I'm sure that show, because is that show period?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Manhattan was period too. And like
Right.
the one thing that I found extraordinary about like a performer at her age was that the crafting of the period aspect of it. Like I don't even know. Like I don't have that kind of skill. Like it's just David Harbour. Like it's the 40s, it's 1980s. It's still David Harbour. His hair might be a little more slick back. It might be a
shaved.
little longer.
Yeah.
But it's still basically. And Rachel kind of does this thing that's like very crafted.
Yeah.
Of like this kind of like thing, and it terrifies me as an actor, and I admire it so much because it can fail so badly.
Yeah.
And the way she does it is like very skilled, and I'm just super impressed by people that take that risk because she doesn't have to.
No, right.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Yeah, and she is super cool, as you said. Manhattan, was that like the Manhattan Project? Because I'm trying to
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
Okay.
It was WGN. It was building the atom bomb out
Yeah.
in Los Alamos, and it's funny because it was
It is funny.
It was hilarious. No, it was a really good idea. The writing was good, but it didn't quite add up. It should have.
Right.
Like, and in fact, when I tell people about the show, they're like, "Oh, that's great," and you're like, "Yeah, it should have been." Like,
Well, here's-
I don't know why it didn't quite,
Yeah.
but we sort of focused actually on the soap opera aspect of it,
Sure.
as opposed to the actual polishing of the nubs on the bomb or whatever. You know what I mean? We focused on this fact that these scientists were brought out to Los Alamos.
And some of them wanted to get laid.
Yes. And they also were told nothing about what they were doing.
Right.
And the wives were told nothing. And so the wives couldn't even know what they were working on. So there was this whole kind of soapy drama of husbands and wives. And we more focused on that. And, it's somewhat interesting, but I feel like the building of the actual bomb, and I think they got into that in season 2, but I was dead.
I think I do know actually why it didn't. It's because they read me 3 times for the show and they didn't cast me.
That's
And if
don't
they
you
had-
love-
if
Hold on,
they
don't
had-
you love a little piece of you when Joe's like that? Don't get numbers, and you're like,
Man, did you nail it.
and don't you have that little ego piece where it's like, well, had you cast me,
Yeah.
you would have been a huge success.
That's all
but
I want.
look at you, chumps.
All I want is for one of the executive producers to go, maybe we didn't cast him.
Exactly. That's the dream that you have in your head,
That's
where
the
they go like,
dream.
"What were we missing?
What were we
like,
missing?
It was him.
We might
It
have
was
miscast
him."
this.
You know,
Might
we
have
do
miscast this
live in
part.
a time where there's so much content that really solid, amazing shows are still not spoken of and falling by the wayside. As we mentioned, we had Greg Kinnear on Sunday, and the show you did with him, Rake.
Yeah, and that was the show that I met Pam Adlon on.
Right, and the pedigree, soup to nuts. Sam Raimi directing the pilot and a couple of episodes, and
Peter Tolan,
Peter
showrunner.
Tolan, great from Gary Shandling days.
So wasn't that was for Fox, right?
Yeah, but that was
I feel
kind
like
of
they,
the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't they pull everything?
And it was
after,
like about
2
a-
episodes.
But not only that, like it was a show about a guy who was in love with a prostitute. Like the show was called Rake. So it was about a rakish individual, right? Who was like kind of in love with a prostitute and like this and that. And then you're on a network like primetime slot. So anytime he wanted to be, even the idea that you're in love, we had to soften the prostitution aspect. She had to be a prostitute with like a heart of gold as opposed to like, you know what I mean? Like you had to soften all these rough edges for network.
You
And
put
you were
that
like,
show-
why just do Friends? Like do Friends with Greg Kinnear. Like that's great. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
But why are you going to do a show about a rakish individual if you're not going to make him rakish?
Right. Just do it on Netflix or Amazon where
Exactly.
you can
Yeah,
do whatever
exactly,
the fuck you want.
exactly.
Because was another show I was telling everybody about on Amazon called Patriot. I don't know if
Oh
you've heard
yeah,
of it.
no, I haven't watched it. Michael
Oh, no,
Chernus.
Yeah.
Michael Chernus is a buddy of mine who, by the way, I have known for about 10 years in New York, and I think he's probably one of the best actors out there.
He's so great in Patriot too.
I mean, but like I've seen his stage work and stuff, and he is like one of my idols as an actor, and he hasn't had like a sort of breakout moment.
Yeah.
But I kind of watched it. I thought that might be it, but it's
it
people aren't
should
really-
have been.
Yeah.
The show is. Anyways, go to Amazon and check it out.
It got renewed.
Did it?
Yeah. There'll be another season, and I hope just in terms of even shows with exceptional quality and exceptional casting, still if they don't get intense support, not just support, intense support. So that's I think the gravy on top of whatever's happening with Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is that Amazon went for it. It paid off, and thankfully people are talking about the damn show. Speaking of which, last time we had you on the show, it was in September of 2016, only a couple of months after the summer, mid-July of 2016, when your life completely changed. And fans of the show's lives also completely changed because it became one of those obsessions. And I at the time was just over the moon for you and for the show, but also just to talk about what it's like to be a part of something as an actor who's been in the trenches for so long and proven over and over again, this show doesn't work, that show doesn't work, to finally have all the lightning in a bottle sort of work out that and become part of the zeitgeist. That is the weird thing, right? So, and I refer all the listeners to go back to that interview because it really was fresh off the experience. I mean, or almost maybe kind of in the center of the eye of the hurricane that September.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was right around the time where the show was starting to get all the accolades and awards and things the first go round, where people were going kind of nutty, and you were on stage giving a speech, and then your co-star becomes a meme. That was unfortunate, but that impassioned speech was what a moment for you personally, right?
I think it's an honor to become a meme. Don't downplay it. I would be very.
I
flattered.
agree.
Yeah.
To be a viral
We've-
meme in particular.
We've had a couple of them, even
Yes,
from
you
this
have.
season too, as well. But no, that was an incredible. But in fact, the time that I did the show was early on, and I think honestly, you were probably one of the first people to ask me to do a talk show in my whole life,
Right.
Like who wanted my opinion about and so that was an interesting thing where the show. did. It hit, it took off, and then suddenly people were like, just this gathering kind of zeitgeisty storm of like, oh, this is amazing. All these people are amazing. Let's get them on talk shows and in magazines and stuff. And before that, it was a desert of Shackleton. You know what I mean? Like heading to Antarctica with the ice pick and,
Suburbia.
Yeah.
Or Siberia. And then so I'm interested in the sort of there's the hiatus between season 1 and 2, which, in terms of booking film work, no one in your reps in your corner really know going into season 1 what the fuck's going to happen, because there was almost no support on the launch of Netflix.
No.
That was the other astonishing thing we talked about, was it was truly a groundswell of word of mouth. And Jamie was pointing out, because I listened to our first interview just really to try to not repeat stuff, but here I will go. But you were pointing out how it became a competition among our friends and among everyone's friends. Have you seen it? What episode are you on?
Well, also, and I think I said this as well, is it's the closest thing we'll get to like water cooler television at this point, because everything's bingeable and like everything you DVR and get to eventually. And so I think it was the closest thing that we will have to like a water cooler. Like I remember Sam, as like in high school, like you would watch like Thursday must-see TV. You would go in on Friday and you talked about
Friends and Seinfeld.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so my curiosity now is, well, several things. Like, going back to work for season 2, knowing, does everyone keep themselves in check? Is everyone, because it's nearly impossible for younger people to not lose their minds, quite frankly. I look at people like Eddie Murphy, 19 years old, when he explodes on SNL, and I think, how did this guy not become an absolute lunatic? Because who has their shit together at 19? Let me guess, no one. So now we've got teenagers who have to keep their shit together.
Yeah, even preteens. They were 12 years old when we were, shooting.
So yeah, their egos aren't even formed yet.
Their brains are still like actual size-wise are just not large.
Yeah. So before we get to what it's like to go back to work for season 2, talk a little bit about just the time
in between.
Yeah, because we saw you mid-September, and you guys went back to work in October, right? Late October?
Yeah,
right.
But it was funny. I don't know that we did speak about this as much. We wrapped season 1 in March of that year, and the show premiered in July, right? So after the March end, I came back to New York, and I was a bit shell-shocked, to be honest. I went through such an experience on the show when I was shooting it that I came back, and I remember driving back from Atlanta with my friend and being very quiet, and I was embarrassed by that. And I was like, he's like, no, it's okay, man. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know, I just don't have anything to say. I was just somehow drained and
melancholy, maybe.
Yeah, it was just very. But also even that character, especially that first season, was so alone, and I was sort of alone.
Right.
And he was going through a very personal, kind of quiet journey.
Right.
And so I came back to New York, and I was very, kind of frazzled. And I really didn't have anything on the horizon. Like there was nothing, nobody cared about me. It had been that way for about 5 months before Stranger Things, and then I shot Stranger Things, and then there was no offers. There was barely any.
Yeah.
In a way, I was kind of washed up. I actually remember having a general with a big network TV casting person, who had flown in from LA in New York, and they set up generals. And she actually said to me, she was like, yeah, guys your age, I don't generally meet them. So,
my God.
Because, by this time it's over. But I figured I'd take a meeting.
What a delightful
wow, what a
person.
peach.
No, it was, but I understood her point. She's a business person, I understood her point.
Yeah, you doesn't have to say that to your face.
I kind of appreciate it. I have to say, it actually is. And I was like, good. Let's just call it. I'm a McDonald's cheeseburger I'm a commodity in a certain way. And then she's like, you're no longer a viable commodity.
Yeah, you're more like the Grimace now.
Right, exactly. But I sort of knew that I would kind of work in a supporting way. But in terms of meeting with developing something around me, that was done. That was done for me.
Sure.
So I went and shot Stranger Things. I came back to New York, and I was, I had no idea if the show would succeed or not.
Right.
I mean, I thought it was very special, but I really had no idea. So I went and I did an off-Broadway play at the Rattlestick, like a new play, and I just threw myself into that. And then I did Shakespeare in the Park, and that was the experience where I was playing Achilles, and I tore my Achilles tendon on stage because I'm so method. And
we checked with the Guinness Book people. It had never happened. Yeah, I thought it had. It seemed too obvious, too on the nose.
It really does.
Turns out it had never happened.
It really does. Yeah. Anyway, so I was doing that. So basically what happened was I tore my Achilles, and then I was laid up. Like I got surgery and I was laid up when the show came out. So the show came out, I was on my couch. I had to elevate my foot 14 hours a day. Oh. And I discovered Twitter, which was exciting actually.
Because we met.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, all these people. So I just tweeted all day. But I was laid up, so I couldn't really work either. We were going back in October, and what happened was after the show dropped and like sort of a month after, I did start getting like offers. Like people started being very interested. And I had my leg in a cast.
What the fuck are you going to do between August and October? I'll tell you, nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was a couple things that came up that I was really interested in doing, but they were very physical. Like one was a Western, and like one was and it was actually, I think I can say it.
Magnificent
I won't say that. No, it was Scott Frank's Godless, which was like, so there were like things that were really cool and with friends of mine, and finally I sort of had the cred to go like, for them to go like, yeah, we can like do this, and then I couldn't do it. But it was fine. Like I kind of needed the mental break too. Like because all of that happened so quickly and so fast and was so overwhelming and everybody wanted to shove me in a part, I think I would have messed it up. So I'm kind of glad I took the break, and then we came back to shoot in October, November, something like that. I think October. Yeah.
So that's what I want to go through slowly if we can, because that's fascinating to me, what it's like to be a part of that hit, suffer through, and benefit from, as you just pointed out, and articulated
I feel like it definitely would have. I mean, like the fact that you had to like turn down roles, they were probably like, well, we can't get him now. He's like even more like
yes. No, it works.
That might be true. I know
the Christopher Guest movie that Kevin Bacon stars in, which I highly recommend, and someone will look up on their phone and tell me the title of Big Picture. There's this great moment where he is trying to get back with this girl, and he's going to make her grilled cheese and soup, and he puts bread in the toaster, and it burns, and says, let's go out to lunch. And while he's out, this is pre-cell phone, no one can reach him. And it's right at the moment they decide in show business that they want to cast him. He won't return our calls, and it's going all through show business that they won't return our calls. And it's just a great little moment that, yes, perception is everything, and people suddenly you're not available.
Yeah.
And so you are able to heal, as it turns out.
Yes.
89%. Yeah. You go back to work, you're going back to Atlanta, all those feelings of returning. And you've had this before in television shows, according to IMDb, where you are going back for that next season. So I'm going to guess never like this.
I mean, the only experience I've had with returning has been, I think the only experience I've had has been with Newsroom, and I was recurring.
Right.
So that's a very different thing. Like
Wildly.
You don't even know if they're going to invite you back. Like and it's kind of play it by ear. Like a week before you get the call, like, hey. But in terms of the shows that I'd done, which was Rake with Greg, what else? Manhattan got another pickup, but I was already dead.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. There was the show State of Affairs that didn't get picked up. Couple other shows, but I had never really had a second season on a show where I was a regular.
Not only a regular, but a standout in a cast.
Thank you. It was a big thing for me, and the response was big.
Yeah. You're getting, while you're sitting there convalescing, you're collecting fan art.
Yeah,
from
exactly.
Twitter.
No, exactly. And being not only from the fans, which is to me kind of the most beautiful part about it, but also from the industry people, like, getting phone calls from, big directors and big writers that, and things like that. So like the world changed and opened up. And I was really glad that it happened with that, because it was something that I threw myself into in a way that I hadn't thrown myself into other things.
Right.
And so I was like, okay. Like, had it happened with something where I felt like my work wasn't, or I wasn't as proud of it.
Right.
The work that I did up to it, I would have questioned my process in a certain way.
Sure.
But this was like, I went into it very consciously, being like, I'm going to do a certain type of work. I'm going to throw myself into it. I'm going to be really messy.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really me.
I'm going to stay away from the kids.
I'm going to stay away. Yeah, no, I'm going to be sort of methody. I'm going to be, but also, like, had I been, even on a simple level, like, had I gotten in really good shape, and then like done this thing and like eaten organic chicken or whatever, and then been really successful, I would have been like, oh damn it.
Yeah.
And instead I was like
Chain smoking.
Yeah, like love handles, and people were like, we love you now, and I was like, oh, I've been trying for years to not do this, and
man,
finally.
go 10 seasons like this, please.
Please.
Well, it's funny too, because like the New Year's resolution thing is funny, because when the show ends, I get a little healthier. Like I start eating better, and I stop smoking. Like I quit smoking, and then so my New Year's resolution, like going into shooting season 3, will be to start smoking again, and to start eating donuts, and like it's great. It's like it's a dream job.
That's
so
hilarious.
So we go down there. No. So before that,
Yeah.
So first of all, there's a little bit of drama around people thinking it's going to be like American Horror Story. It's going to be like, why do another season? Because this is a complete story with these characters. And so there's a little bit of drama of like, why not do another town in like Stranger Things or Twilight Zone, Black Mirror it or
Replace
something.
the cast.
Yeah, exactly. Or do it when the kids have grown up, like 20 years from now or something.
Right.
Like they do an It or,
Sure.
So it was a bit nerve-wracking in terms of thinking that, because Hopper had such a complete arc too. Like he starts dead inside, and then the minute he revives Will, he takes this breath, and I feel like it's like the first breath you've seen him take he's taken in certainly the past 6 years since his daughter's death.
Right.
And so that's the journey, is like how to breathe again.
Yeah.
And so that journey is so complete, and it ends.
And he's a hero.
Yeah. So he goes. So we're going to go into season 2. It's like, what are you going to do?
Right.
Like you can't do the same thing. And a lot of time with TV, what happens is, the model is Gilligan's Island or Friends, which is just like you're always on the island trying to get off. So it's like the arc of your character. You're going to be trying to get off the island. And Hopper had nowhere to go.
Right.
Like he woke up and he was heroic. So what are you going to do with him now?
Where's
You're
the
just
conflict now?
Where is he going to go? So
in fact, I remember you going back to meet with the Duffer Brothers to talk about season 2. I remember a text exchange, something about what the fuck is this going to be, and then you actually met with them. And how much do they share at that point?
This was before I revealed everything to the press, and so they shared a lot with me. But now, I've been cut off. They do because what I need to do what I do, and what I had in season 1 was a complete arc. Right. So it allows me to emotionally sculpt certain moments, so that because if I just have episode to episode, if a scene says if a scene seems to indicate within the context of this that he's angry or passionate, I'll play it angry and passionate. But if I know that he's hiding something that will come out in episode 8, or that I don't want to sculpt it until this, I'll underplay this, or I'll do you treat it as if you look at a music piece, right? And certain sections say piano, certain say fortissimo, but you can't really tell from the actual notes what what you should be doing.
Right.
So in that way, I needed to know what the arc was, and so they did tell me the arc.
Of your character or the show?
Of the character. I mean, I learned a little bit about the show, but I'm not as interested in the show. I'm more interested in my particular strain of the music. Because the show will take care of itself, and they'll take care of the show. I'll take care of my particular story.
Right.
And so in that way, they did. They sat me down and they were like, okay, it's going to be you and Millie in the cabin, basically, like most of the show.
Right.
And then
which is amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. It was such a So
that becomes like a play for the two of you in terms of there's a stage.
Yeah. And the great thing about it is, talk about a sophisticated arc. So the first season you have a man who's dead inside, who's cynical, who's snarky, who has a shtick of like, whatever, like, I'm funny, like, fuck you guys. And some people find that charming and other people find that repellent, and the sort of play of that. And then he actually he reinvests in his sincerity. Right. And he becomes heroic. And like, that's beautiful to watch, like a person open in that way. And you're like, oh man, he is a good guy. And he does care. And
vulnerable somehow.
Yeah, and he does care more.
Right.
So then you start season 2. And for me, the subtle psychological journey for him is you are a superhero. So you are a superhero. And so you start to try to control things, because you do believe that you have a certain power that other people don't have and a certain knowledge that other people don't have. And so you meet up with your control issues. In a way, it's like the Batman versus the death of the Superman thing, where, we're doing it on much more subtle, but you're Superman, right? So people, you do know better. You are more powerful. So like, mere mortals like, shut up. And so there's that aspect to him that we start to explore, and then we realize the limits of his control and his own guilt about this control issue.
Right. And protecting her the way he couldn't protect his real life daughter.
Exactly, but that leads to, mistakes.
One after another.
Because you're not you can't stave off.
Nope.
You can't.
The world and life.
But the desperate need to is in sheer conflict.
That what I found so unbelievably beautiful, without them having to hit it over the head, about having the two of you shackled in that setting, was you're both going through vastly different experiences there, and you guys want to weigh in on this a little bit?
I'm not a fan of the show. So I don't think I'm the right person to weigh in here.
I mean, it really was a
I don't do genre stuff. I'm sorry.
Not a fan of science fiction in general.
No.
Shit blows up. There's a monster, and good for you. No, just in terms of, I realize that. If you wanted to, please jump in.
Yeah, no.
We will jump in.
Okay, good.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I think, the whole... I'm not trying to make this about me, but please bear with me.
Sure.
So people have asked me for the last 17 years, oh man, are they going to bring Freaks and Geeks back? And I always say, what would we do if what could we possibly do to please you?
Right.
Like, there's no way we would ever please the masses. And so with how big season 1 was for that show, and then it got picked up, I remember thinking to myself, like, oh man, they are in a corner on this one.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what they do.
And the expectations were higher than anything I remember.
I was like, no matter what they do, no matter how great this is, if it is, there's going to be some unhappy people.
And we've lost the discovery of this universe.
And yet I have not spoken to a single person, and I have some tough to please friends who watched the second season and were disappointed in any way.
It's true.
Yeah.
And so what the Duffer Brothers did, what you guys did as actors, and fulfilled those arcs, yet again, another incredible arc. I mean, hats off to you. You guys really crushed it.
I think it helps too that they just go in chronological order. It's just like it's the next year.
Yeah.
It's the next school year. I think that helps a lot, other than like doing it like an American Horror Story where like it's all contained in itself. Like, I like that they just like, we're just going to keep going.
Listening.
And age with the children.
Yeah, and I think that and I think people fell in love with these characters. I mean, we certainly did. And it was like, I want to see Hopper a year later. I mean, I want to see Joyce a year later. I want to see what...
Yeah, what the fuck happened to these people?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like what, and I
want to see these kids age and grow.
And that's another exciting thing is like, we're going to get to see that in real time. I mean, we're going to get to see next year. I mean, these kids are already like mini adults. Some of them have sprouted up and they look different. And
some got teeth.
Some got teeth.
And listening back also to the last time we sat here or there, Jamie was pointing out when I was saying, what can you tell us about the next season without knowing much? I think you really did know at that point was that it was 1 year later, and then that allowed Jamie to realize it
Oh,
was
I take
1984.
full
Wait, you
credit.
said Ghostbusters at the
I
time.
took full credit.
That was amazing.
I was like, if this takes place
You
in
said
the fall,
Halloween.
if this takes place in the fall of '84, these kids are going to be obsessed with Ghostbusters.
I'd like a tarot reading from you. Because that was incredible.
Yeah.
And like so on the nose, right? I mean,
And also arguing over who was Venkman and who was.
Oh, right.
You
I think
also
we were
said
doing
that.
it.
Nobody wants to be Winston. And not one Amadeus reference. I mean, really, guys.
Amadeus?
Really drop the
things
ball.
1984.
Yeah, like Hopper's going to be out desperate to catch the new F. Murray Abraham flick.
Powdered wig. It all makes sense.
I hear Murray's got a new art film out.
We got to go 3 towns over to catch it, but I think it's worth it. What do you say, Joyce?
Exactly.
Oh man. So yeah, let's just try to walk a little bit through the experience of. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with this, but going back to work on season 2, even like the first table read.
Okay,
that's
so
what
yeah,
happened.
but even receiving the first script, like
Yeah,
I remember
exactly.
being
That's
terrified,
right.
Because I was like, as you felt, I was like, we're never going to be able to live up to this. They're gonna fall flat. And like I was, I don't think I'm alone, but I remember loving True Detective the first season, and then that second season coming around, being so psyched, sitting down, and within 15 minutes, going, what is going on? And so that I was feeling that with the scripts. And I mean, I was worried about that when I received the script.
How can you not?
And then I got the first script and I read the first, I think it's like 8 pages. And I was like blown away because it's that car chase. And I was like, where are we? Like, I thought we were in Hawkins, Indiana. Where's Hopper? Like, where's, Flo? And instead it's a car chase and this,
It's in Pittsburgh,
crazy
correct?
thing. Yeah. And then you see the 8 on her, the tattoo of 8. And you're like, whoa, you guys are blowing open the world. And all these things that fans have wondered about, like why she's 11, like, and what the other numbers are. You're starting to bravely go into exploring this. And then the last 5 minutes of the first episode when Hopper goes to the cabin and says, you got to eat real food. And she's like, you're late. And they sit down at the table and there's a pullback and you're like, oh my God, 11's alive and Hopper knows where she is.
Yeah.
And then you know that we're going to get all this flashback and all this stuff. And so reading that, I was like, we're in for a trip. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah. Of course.
And then
Is there a table read? Is that the first time
so then we
everyone
go
gets-
down to Atlanta. We have some fittings and stuff, and then we do a table read, and we read the first 4. And I remember we got 3 and 4 like the afternoon of the table read or something. And the funny thing about this season is, the first table read, it was like the Duffers and Sean and like, I mean, there was, I think Brian from Netflix was there, but like this table read, like,
Oh my God! Everyone
Ted was there, Cindy
full
was
dress
there.
blues.
Exactly. like there were photographers and there were name tags and there were like, it was a deal. And we sat down to read it. And I just remember, those things are weird in general, but in general, like people are just so great. And I love the people, and I loved meeting like Paul Reiser and sort of seeing what he brought just to those table reads because, and the dynamic that I had with him where I just adored him. And then like Sean Astin, what he brought to the table. So sweet. So there were all these new elements that were really exciting. And then we read up to 4. And I remember the most exciting part for me was because I just got 4, but then we read at the table read and sort of first reading through this scene with Millie where I call her a brat. And I have this big fight with her and the windows blow out. And I was like, of course, like you're trying to care for a telekinetic, like a superpowered daughter. And then she's going to have telekinetic like fits. Like, and it's, tantrums, telekinetic tantrums, I think we call it. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And so, it was really exciting. And then we got into the shooting of it. And the great thing about it is, the first week, everybody's jazzed and nervous. And so even as you're shooting, like you're doing a lot of extra work to stay relaxed and stay present and then it melts away.
Yeah.
And
now we're just back at work.
Yeah. And like that to me, the feeling that I have on set, and I don't know if it's the reason why it's lightning in a bottle, but it is so relaxed to the point of like, not that we're not working, but it's just this feeling of like, we
got this.
Well, it's more like we don't take ourselves seriously, and we live with what's going on.
Yeah.
The great thing is the work is very personal. So like I'll even have days where I struggle with some insomnia sometimes, and I'll have days where like I won't sleep, and I'll show up and I'll be like smoking cigarettes outside waiting to do something. And I'll be like, this works. Like, this is great. I can incorporate this sleeplessness. I can incorporate this, anger. It's just so, it feels so organic.
Yeah.
The entire experience of being down there, being together feels so organic. Like, we're always working and not working.
Right.
It just feels like this thing where it's
Are
like
you a little out of the city where you guys shoot?
Yeah. We're out by the airport.
Right.
There's a studio down there.
Right.
And I think what you're saying about how organic it is, that's what makes for such the high quality of the show. Like, if like you didn't have like all of this, it wouldn't be.
And I think also like that's one of the things that you have people coming in, and one of the dangers of the show is like, because the first season, like nobody cared. Like we were shooting this thing. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew who the kids were. And like we were shooting this thing. So day players would come in from Atlanta and they were like, I'm going to shoot this. But I'm doing Walking Dead like next week. And I'm doing Halt and Catch Fire. And like I'm super psyched. And they were like, so we'll just do this scene. And then, and then this season though, the danger becomes that we're all there doing this family thing, same thing we've done from day one, and day players will come in. They'll be like, oh my God, like I'm going to act in Stranger Things. And you're like, relax. Like, it's not, you know what I mean?
And
like,
also, can I get a selfie every 9 seconds?
Yeah, that's the other thing that was strange.
Yeah, everyone wants to capture this moment in their lives.
Right, but like I don't blame them. Like I've been on sets with, I've been on sets with people that I love and things that I love, and had Stranger Things had I not been in it and I'd been cast as day player, I'd be pretty jacked too.
Sure.
But the fact that it was something organic that we created just gave us, and the fact that the people, and this is something that to me is unique, the people are all good people. Like
that is unique.
Except for there's like but in general, like all the cast and crew are like good-hearted people, don't take themselves seriously.
Right.
Don't have people around that are like, making it about what it's not about.
Right.
Like we make the work about what the work's about, and we just make fun of each other.
Great.
And I've never felt that on a set. I felt a lot of tension and boundaries that might be necessary in certain things. But in us, it really is like a weird dysfunctional family.
Yeah, which is and there's also a big shift in two of the younger actors and their characters. One who was absent most of the first season suddenly becomes much more central.
Who's Will?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Mike, who's sort of the center for the kids in the first season, is not in the second season.
Yeah.
And so for younger minds developing, as we were saying, brains growing in size, that could have created its own dynamic, which wouldn't have been helpful to the show. And it sounds like that was not the case.
Yeah, no. I mean, kids together, there's going to be a lot of fun, and there's also going to be just a little bit of drama.
Right.
But it wasn't centered around things like that. There isn't jealousy. And there isn't there's this strange thing where,
You're not allowed to say strange things, by the way.
I'm just trying to promote the show. There's this,
Let's sit right in.
There's this thing where we, they are such good, we hug each other after scenes, things where they're so supportive of good work, and everyone's just so respectful of each other. And I really don't understand it. I must have a deep cynicism of this business and of working in this business.
Well,
it's sort of justified,
it just
right?
comes from years in the trenches,
and just just different dynamics of sets.
And there's very little love on most sets. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And I think it's also interesting and helpful maybe that you're all on location together.
Yeah, I think that's
you're
true.
all away from home, right?
I think that's true.
Do you guys do dinners and stuff?
It's funny, there is some of that. Mm-hmm. But the most interesting thing to me about my dynamic with them, they might do a little more of it than me,
sure,
is that I actually don't hang out with them hardly at all. And I mean all of them, including Winona. Yeah. So the weird thing is the work can actually be a little more personal. because here's what I feel about acting in general is like when it's the best is when it's very personal. In other words, when I play a scene and someone's yelling at me, and I'm yelling at them, and then after the scene I feel shaken and like actually mad at the other person for like, a little bit. That to me is like when it's like, whoa, like I don't know, I sort of lose myself and
couldn't be more connected to and present.
Yeah, and my blood is responding to this other human being that's imaginative, our response, but it's just very personal. So like
if you hang out with them.
Well, I respect the work so much that when we cross those doors and when we get on set together is when we magically create, like even this show, right? Like we were talking a little bit before the show. And then we were like, let's turn the mics on. Yeah. And that's part of the feeling that I have where I feel like let's just get in front of a camera because the spark, the fire that I feel with you, like I want that to be what we do as opposed to like us having a great time outside and like laughing. Like I want that to happen when we're on camera. And in fact, the way it's worked out for me, and I don't know if this is the case, but I remember doing a play in New York where we had the best time outside the set. Like we would go out and have dinner and laugh and like they were the funny, and the work was so bad on stage. It was so dead.
Yeah, because it wasn't alive like your real lives together. It was rehearsed and staged.
Yeah. And there might have been something to just the amount of time that you can spend with someone or something that isn't, a certain like someone you marry or something. I mean, like it's
and you're not allowed to fuck off. I mean, that's the thing about the controlled environment of work, is that if you've been fucking off with these people and just having laughs and good times, that's always going to be more enjoyable.
Yes,
it just is.
But also, there's a safety, and in fact, in terms of this women's movement too that's happening in Hollywood, like the safety of allowing the work to be personal, because the work itself is personal. Right. And like when I'm with Winona working with her as Hopper, there are feelings of sexuality.
Sure.
Like, so the fact that we can go outside that door, slam the door and do our own lives and not have to carry that into our real life makes the safety of that particular weird work that we do emotionally more safe.
Right.
Because she knows and I know that I can go there and I can have a weird, like I can actually feel love for her.
Right.
And I know that I step across that threshold and, whatever, I'm just going to go do my life.
Right.
But it actually creates a boundary. It creates a safety to allow the work to be more personal. And I'm very respectful of that because earlier in my career, I did that thing where you'd have these showmances. And I do find that like, for the past like 10 years, like I'm very respectful of the boundary of the work. And I don't like to get involved with people that I work with because I do feel like I want to preserve the weirdness and the perversity of the characters. And you can't really do that if you feel like you leave set and the guy's like, hey, it was a really, weird scene we did. And like you feel, and it's like, like, no, let's let the scene be weird in the moment when they're capturing it and feel all the feelings you feel. And then go out and just remember that like, it's a business. But the fact that it is so emotional makes it difficult. To make that line. And that's very important to me now, is that line of safety. Because I need to feel it too.
Right.
Otherwise, I can't do scenes where I'm rageful at some big guy or sexual with a woman and then feel like she's going to take it personally and like fall for me or something. Like I don't need that in my life. I need that in my work. So that was like, that's what's very special, is like I don't hang out with them. And even like my fasciation and obsession with Joe Keery, like I truly am.
Oh, you're not
I'm
alone.
madly in love. I'm madly in love with Joe Keery. And I have had maybe 3 conversations with him outside of Stranger Things. It's really just what I see him do as his work and what our dynamic on set, like in scenes together.
Right. So
it's not like Joe and I hang out or even really talk.
Well, let's let's just see if how that translated itself. I reached out to him for a
Oh
question.
no, you did
For
not.
a question for you, and he's yet.
Oh God.
Here's good news. He's yet to respond.
Oh, thank God.
So that's a comment on both of us,
terrific.
I think.
That's terrific. Good. Thank
We
you,
had
Joe.
him on the show, and,
Thank you, Joe.
and you offered up a great famous question
I
for
did,
him.
yeah. I
yeah,
did,
and it
I
played
did.
great.
Yeah. Oh, it did. Good.
And no reciprocation. So no.
Well,
quid pro quo.
that's the kind of respect that I get on the Stranger Things set,
And
well deserved too.
and or the respect he has for me. All right, so we talked a little bit about the Duffer Brothers the last time. They've themselves have start to have had appearances on talk shows and podcasts, and people are starting to get a little bit of sense of them because for most of the audience of the show that fell in love with it, there became an instant sort of fashion of where the fuck did these guys come from and who are they and do they really finish each other's sentences and what is happening. It sounds like they also care more about the work than everything else, which is to the benefit of the show and all the participants. But let's talk a little bit about the additions to, like you had a fan crush or something with Paul Reiser. We had him on the show, and he talked about, he actually got the phone call from the agent and then the Duffer Brothers about being in season 2 a couple days before season 1 dropped. They already started to think in terms of what they might want to do in season 2, even before the pickup, and even before anyone went bananas because the show was instantly embraced. They had this idea, and they reached out and started talking to him about this. So you hear, it does sound like they're walking right on top of us. Interesting. You hear that he's going to be in season 2, and you have your own stuff with that.
Not that impressed.
Not that impressed.
When I hear. Like truly an example of a man showing up and impressing me, but hearing the name, please. I was like, it's a big show, guys. We couldn't have,
Yeah. What are you saying? Bill Pullman wasn't
Yeah,
available?
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, really? I guess Billy Bob still got Goliath. Like, what was the impediment? No, of course, like I was curious about it, and mainly, it's funny because he has this whole leg of his career, which is like Mad About You, right? Yeah. But for the Duffers, it was that performance in Aliens,
Absolutely,
and for me as well, like
sure.
that performance in Aliens of that shady
shill.
But like kind of
Corporate.
nice and like you kind of feel compassionate for him. So that complexity of playing the head of the lab that I feel like Modine went a certain direction in that was a bit arch or a bit more like, just what it was. We felt like, I know the Duffers felt that like bringing in someone like Paul Reiser who has all this charisma and sort of like
sweetness.
That like you kind of root for him, that would be more complicated. And right. I think one of the things that is great about them is they're always seeking relationships and people that are going to be more complicated than less complicated.
Right.
Like as the season goes on. A lot of times what happens is people just want you to be like, even Netflix a little bit, I feel like, was like, okay, we have a hit show. Like, let's make sure that like Hopper walks in and says, Flo, mornings are for coffee and contemplate. Like, let's make sure Dustin does that thing where he's
right.
adorable. And the Duffers are like, no, let's give him teeth.
Yeah.
Like, let's take away let's make them more complicated. Let's let the kids grow up. And so in that way, the choice of Paul was very interesting because he brings a sweetness to this thing. And you know that Hopper's going to be pissed at these lab people and Joyce, and they're not going to trust them. But as the season goes on, you see that like Hopper and this guy are, have a certain begrudging respect for each other.
Also for the audience, we have instant mistrust left over from season 1 of anything that goes on at that lab.
Of course.
Right. And so we are organically questioning everything he says and does.
Of course. And the interesting thing about Paul is like truly when he did show up, like almost immediately, and maybe it's just because he's the only other adult male on set. Like it's like there a lot. But I really fell in love with that guy as a colleague.
Right.
I certainly respect what he's done, but also he's just really funny, and he's got, and he's just really fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you must have had a good time with him here.
Yeah, and I've known him a long time, and he's always been that guy. He's always been instantly charming without effort.
Right.
And can make you laugh, and also has a good laugh.
Yeah, and
some comedians don't. They don't give it up. He gives it up.
Well, that's what I've heard is like comedians are notoriously insecure, difficult,
competitive.
Yeah. And like Paul, easily makes fun of himself as well.
Yeah.
And
there are certain comedians, this is as close as we get. So one comedian's on stage performing and you're in the wings waiting to go on next. And the person performing on stage finishes to a crazy round of applause. They walk off stage, pass you, and say, follow that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a great relationship.
Yeah.
And a great people.
Yeah. And he really is the opposite of that. I mean, and I remember there were days on set where we have to do some pretty funny things. I mean, you experience it as all being very dramatic, but there were days in that lab with me and him and a bunch of, CGI demodogs running out, us looking at monitors just all day long in a room with and I remember just laughing. Like, that was the one time. And he was the one guy. Like, I stay pretty in character. I like to do pretty sophisticated work. But for some reason, when I would do stuff with him, I just would, lose it. Just little takes he would do, and I would just make fun of him so much.
Yeah.
And he would make fun of me so much.
Yeah.
Just for little gestures that we'd do on takes that were ridiculous.
Sure.
But I really had a good time with him on set in a way that
after a take, he would say, "That's the way you're going to do it, like that. You're going to just look at the monitor and say those
oh
words.
my God, that's impeccable. That's impeccable.
You're not going to look away like you're thinking about something. You're just going to look right at the thing and say the line. Well, that's good because you're on a show and everybody loves it. Yeah, I can channel Riser pretty fast.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, he is that singular, and great for it.
Here's a weird connection I just made. Follow me along with this, Jamal. Is Randy Quaid going to be the guy running the lab next year? And I'll tell you why I make that joke.
Likability?
No, the movie Bye Bye Love.
Oh, so we
Modine,
talked about this.
Riser.
Well, what
Yes.
about Daniel Stern?
What about season 4, and then Rob Reiner season 5. It all comes together.
I had that movie poster in my bedroom.
Oh dear God!
I did.
Bye Bye Love?
Yeah, because they would give out free movie posters at my local video rental place, and I got it just because I liked the actors in the cast.
Yep.
So
Collecting character actors.
Yes, exactly. Collecting character actors like baseball cards.
Yep.
I want to know what you guys talked about though.
No, I just did an interview we were at Comic-Con or something. We did an interview, me, Paul, and Modine, which is not a pairing that we often do. But I remember, I don't know, something came up where Paul was talking about rentals or something, and I was like, listen, Mr. 1982, we don't rent videos anymore. And I somehow got on this movie, Bye Bye Love.
Yeah.
And I at some point we were talking about the reboot, or it was just funny because I don't know anything about this movie, but apparently it was Modine, him, and they were saying goodbye to love or something. They were
yes. That's the title is not misleading. Yeah.
Bye bye love.
Bye bye
I
love.
just remember it was It was during the height of Riser's
Mad About You
fame, and it was his vehicle for a romantic comedy, like a studio film.
Well, there you go. All right, Randy Quaid, you're on deck.
And
Will you be headed to Slam Dance for Human Affairs?
No.
Okay. This is a film you did during the hiatus between 1 and 2, I'm guessing? Seasons 1 and 2? Yeah.
That was a strange experience. I'm not exactly sure what that was.
And did it require you to lay down most of the shooting?
Oh, yeah, with the boot.
With the foot?
Would you have the boot
Oh,
on?
no.
Prior to
No.
You did prior to season 1?
No, this was years ago. I mean,
It's just now rolling out now?
I don't exactly know. It's been in. I did this years and years ago.
This is My Boss's Daughter of.
It's just one of these. Yeah, it's kind of one of these movies that I did, and it just sat around. I know the guy who directed it, and he's just been doing lots of different things, and I don't know how invested he is as a filmmaker. So now it's kind of coming together. Yeah. I mean, I met Carrie Condon doing that, who's an actress who
she's
I adore.
Wonderful.
Yeah, who I adore. So that was
How's that brogue in real life?
It's amazing.
Oh,
it's
my God.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Irish are like...
You would know her from Better Call Saul. She is Mike's daughter-in-law.
She shared fucking heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. Do you want to talk at all about what it was like? Well, you know what? Fuck that. Let's talk all things Bulgaria. We buried the lead.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So I talked on this show a few times about being forced to become an international filmmaker and going to Bulgaria to finish directing this little comedy, also available on Netflix, called The Late Bloomer. But so it is decided that between seasons 2 and 3, you will go to Bulgaria to reboot a completely reimagining, right? This is soup to nuts.
Complete.
Yeah. So tell me about that, please, as much as you can.
Sure. Let's see. I was approached as we were shooting season 2. I was approached I think around January, February, and basically they were like, at that point they didn't have a studio. They were just like, it was Larry Gordon and Lloyd Levin had the rights to Hellboy. They had done the first 2 movies, and they wanted to reimagine it.
Right.
And I guess it had been with kind of Guillermo developing it for a long time, because the last movie came out in 2008, and then at one point he had sort of passed it on and said, like, go forward. We can't come to terms on this. It's not going to be right. So, I think he had a budget that was very large and wanted to make a big, and so they were like, let's try something different. And then so they said, you're our guy. They said, we really want you to do this. And they sent me the script. And I read the script, and the script wasn't terrible, which I was like really excited about.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because it's an exciting opportunity,
Yes.
right? It represents a whole lot of things that actors rarely get a shot at in any form.
Right.
And then you're just praying, please let the script not suck.
Yeah.
I'm fine if it's just good enough.
Yeah.
But just don't let it suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even like the thing about the superhero mythos that's going on, like the tons of superhero movies that are happening, it's like I certainly want to be involved in that conversation, just sort of like on a film, level, but also on an artist level, because I feel like it is the forefront film-wise of what kids are seeing, of how people are experiencing film. There's like the big film push in the last, I think since Downey's Iron Man is it's like the superhero movies, whereas like that wasn't the case in the 70s or even in the 80s. Maybe it was a lot of Bye Bye Loves. You know what I mean? Like it was more the rom-com or what. And so this is the age of the superhero movie, which I'm not exactly sure if it's going to continue, if people are going to change their minds about that. But I did know that I wanted to be involved in that conversation. And I also knew that my particular brand of that conversation is not as kid-friendly as Captain America or something. Like there is something that I want to explore in that genre that's a bit more darker, weirder,
Damaged.
stranger.
But they're starting to do that now. So
Exactly. And
Yeah,
so
no,
what happened was it
Deadpool.
opened the door.
Really-
Logan and Deadpool.
Yeah, changed that
In
big
very
time.
different ways,
Yeah.
both changed it. Like
And
Logan,
I don't think you should worry about the superhero thing is not going away anytime soon.
Really?
I
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
They won't let it.
They won't let. Yeah.
Yeah. The audience may turn, but the studio
it's not
won't
going.
stop.
it's funny because I think the fans
they'll take 10
turn,
years
but they
to
still
catch
go.
Right.
Like it still
I
makes
don't
money.
think so. I think people that I don't know. Like I feel like I'm not a huge Marvel person or super. Like I kind of pick and choose which movies I want to see based on like who's in them or who's directing
Okay.
them. But people that are true fans of it now, they'll go
Yeah.
see everything they put out and
Yeah.
pretty much like it.
And
At
almost
least like it.
And almost universally so that they have an opportunity to talk to each other about how the movie should have been made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's that comic book guy, right? Like
Yep.
on Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whose actual name is
Jeff Albertson.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyway, so I really wanted to be like involved in that.
Yeah.
So like the character of Hellboy is like perfect. I mean, because I feel like he is so complicated.
Oh man.
And it is a dark world. And especially when you go back to the comics themselves or to the graphic novels themselves by Mike Mignola. It's a real dark universe of like, and also it goes into all these things that I love, which are like old stock mythological beings. Like it doesn't have its own universe of like Iron Man and these guys. It has like Baba Yaga and like King Arthur and like these things that are in fairy tales and in folklore, and it has like it has this kind of real grounded tradition of like fairy tales, which I really like.
Right.
It's got like Rasputin and like Nazi occultists. I mean, it's like great. So these Guillermo del Toro movies were like very sort of bright and fantastic and more of that comic book genre. And so what Lloyd and Larry had pitched to me, and along with this script, was this idea that we would go much darker and more macabre and more horror-based and also more mature in subject matter and more of a character-driven piece where the focus is on the interior struggles of Hellboy as opposed to him just being one thing and fighting evil.
Right.
That like he himself has a duality in terms of his humanness and his demonness that is problematic.
Now, I'm going to ask a very specific question.
Okay.
Did you spend some time on – how much time did you spend and what was it like during that time on deciding what Hellboy's voice would be?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. I spent a lot of time on it. But the interesting thing to start to understand the voice, I actually had to understand the prosthetic.
Yes.
So I got fitted because we were in design talks for like 3 months where we had Joel Harlow working on this thing, and we would go and test it. So I'd go to LA and they would apply the prosthetic, which was a face, an entire silicone mask face with the horns and the hair and then a neck as well and then a body. And at various points there were and then the right hand of doom, right? But I couldn't find the voice until I saw what he looked like.
Exactly.
Because he's not.
Looked in the mirror.
And you start to understand, it's funny. The instrument itself. Like I myself look like David Harbour, and I have a certain instrument and I have a certain voice, right? And then you see this and you're like, oh, this is a completely different instrument. Like this is a voice that comes out of a demon.
Yeah.
And also, like I went here. This is fascinating. So I saw a wired little like 5-minute clip where this dialect coach, he's sort of a dialect coach, this guy Eric, I forget what his last name is, I think it's Singer, but Eric, he goes over all these people's different voices in movies and where they relate and how they relate. And he goes through like Heath Ledger's Joker. He goes through and he says whether they're good or bad, like
Daniel Day-Lewis's Lincoln.
Exactly. And like all these different things where actors are crafting voices that are outside of themselves. And I actually called him and I was like, I want to work with you. And so we started working. And here's what I knew about Hellboy is that his first language is not none of this is in the comic. This is all just personal work that I'm doing.
Right.
Then there's the aesthetic of you're actually matching a comic. So you have almost a balletic structure, right? Which is like I have to be in first position. I have to be in second position. I have to be in – it's not like I can just dance and create this guy.
Right.
This guy exists on the page as a certain thing. But I myself have to go back and understand the muscular structure to get into position one through this particular thing, okay? So the muscular structure for me begins with the questions of like where was he born? What's his first language? And so his first language, he's spawned into the world when he's young by Nazi occultists. But theoretically, he was born in hell, okay? So his first language is demonic, right? He has an inherent demonic structure to if he was raised in hell, if he was demonic parents, his vocal cords would be demonic. They're primed for demonic. Right. And then he meets Broom. Broom saves him and raises him. Broom's a British man who raises him, but he raises him internationally. He goes all around the world fighting evil. So he doesn't have a British accent. And apparently when people learn language, they learn it not from their parents' structure. A lot of kids when they learn accent, when they have an accent, like their parents could be British, but it's based on who you're raised around. So your peers develop your language structure and your idols. And so part of the thing too is, so he's got this British father, but he doesn't have a British accent. So why doesn't he have a British accent? Okay, so he was raised all over the world. He speaks different languages, but his idol, his main dude that he loves more than anyone else in the world
is the devil.
Is a guy named Lobster Johnson.
Of course.
Lobster Johnson. It's the best. It's the best name ever. Lobster Johnson is a American hero, like a Nazi fighting hero.
Sure.
And so I sort of had this vision where he spawned in during World War II, and he grows up watching like Jimmy Cagney movies, and he idolizes Lobster Johnson, and he develops this persona of being a paranormal detective.
Sure.
So he wears a trench coat.
You better believe it.
Like Humphrey Bogart, who he sees in the Maltese Falcon.
Right.
And he's like this little demon boy going like, I want to be that guy.
Wow.
And Lobster Johnson contributes to that as well in the fantastical world. So he talks like Lobster Johnson.
Sure.
So one of the things I had to know was So I had to understand how lobster spoke first. Okay, so that gets developed as well, and then you have this big instrument in terms of how it particularly resonates, and then you have maybe he's uncomfortable, and then the other thing about the particular movie. Which it's amazing that you bring up the voice, because the voice to me was very important. Because the thing about the particular movie,
it all starts there.
The movie is him, but the movie also is him finding his voice.
Right.
So like he himself, and I find those metaphors very potent when you're working.
Yeah.
Like he actually is a demon killing monsters in a human world for humans, right? So his voice is muted by this idea of being a good person. And so his voice may actually be demonic. I mean, he may actually be, and he's supposed to be naturally the beast of the apocalypse. Like he's meant to bring about the end of the world. So there is a natural, intrinsic genetic desire to destroy. Like at his DNA level, he wants to just decimate the world. But like he wants to be a good guy. So his voice is trapped.
And Lobster Johnson too.
Yeah. He wants to be a good. So his voice is trapped. So I had to work on tension in the voice, the muscles, all that stuff. And then the interesting thing was sort of uncovering. There's one phrase in the piece that is demonic in my mind, which is Anung Ung Rama, which is his name. In the comic, he's called Hellboy by Broom, but his real name is his birth name is Anung Ung Rama.
Sure. Which means
I don't know. Nobody knows. But it basically I worked with.
I looked it up.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
What does it mean?
I'll have the eggs. Which is surprising. It is surprising. Sorry.
But we worked with there's certain Muslim cultures. I feel like Eric was talking to me about where you use certain glottal structures where you like there is these things where and where I started to develop this certain voice that he could occasionally fall back into, which was intrinsically genetic. And then he has his voice that he puts on.
Right.
All of this talk, at the end of the day, too, there's you paint, you develop, you structure, you work.
Right. You put on those prosthetics.
And then you realize that he's going to be saying one-liner jokes. And you don't want to do too much because part of the joke is
throw it away.
And also part of the joke is that he looks like this and he's just me and you talking.
Well, that's fucking brilliant.
Otherwise, it's he looks like this and he talks. It's he should just be oh, that guy, if I just heard him on the phone and then you know what I mean?
Well, I was going to ask, based on everything you've said, did they keep the sense of humor? Because without it, I feel all these films are uninteresting.
Absolutely.
Because that's humanity.
And it was really important to me that that's an aspect of his character.
And how great if you heard this guy on the phone, you wouldn't know what he looks like.
Yeah. He's just the guy.
Is that scene in the movie where
he's on the phone?
Calls in a pizza?
Sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be a sequel. Huh. Interesting. That they would.
We don't. Yeah, but that was very. The humor is very important. Otherwise, it's you can't take them too seriously. Although I did want it to have compelling stakes. But
course.
part of the fun about Hellboy is that he himself within a situation, like one of the great things about the comics too is like a villain character will come out and be like, listen, this is the end of the world and like we are going to bring about a new humanity. And Hellboy goes like, it talked pretty good for a guy with no pants. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's like his thing is like he gets embarrassed by the seriousness of what everybody's doing. And it's just like, come on. Like, well, you know.
Yeah.
And so that was, that's very important. But even that humor structure had to be grounded within character. Otherwise, it can't just be jokes. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But like Deadpool, like Ryan does that brilliantly. Like Deadpool is hilariously funny, but within a structure of a dude who's insane.
Sure.
And that's that structure to me is like what makes it really genius.
Yeah, he's not a comedian. He's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's clever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. When do they think it might come to theaters near you?
I think that they talked about it being January of 2019. Yeah, January of 2019.
That works.
I'll be long gone.
That's her favorite thing.
Whenever somebody says something that's
Too
at
far
least
in the
like
future.
at least like over 6 months in the future, I'm like, I won't be around.
Does this ever happen to you too, where it's like something will be released long in the future, and then you'll get to that date,
And you're
and
and
I'm
then you
kind
think
of
about
annoyed. I'm like, oh man, that was like a year and a half ago. Now we're here. That sucks. I'm psyched that I get to play that video game, but that sucks that a year and a half has gone by.
I promised myself I'd learn to play the violin this year.
Exactly.
And it didn't happen. And here we are.
Also, the fact that we're like structuring our lives by release dates.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that they're so far out, right? That we're planning this like a year out. Well, I mean, the Marvel stuff and the DC stuff, I think they have like 8 years in the future. Like
Or
it'll
Star
be
Wars now. It's like, you know.
I read the saddest thing in the world, and I forget who wrote the article, but it was about the Star Wars universe and how at this point the studios have already plotted out so many well over a decade and a half of movies, and you know that they're just going to keep continuing. And the thing that they mentioned is pretty much no one alive today will ever see the conclusion of the Star Wars universe.
Wow.
Like it's going to keep going on and on and on. We will have grandchildren who see Star Wars movies 80 years from now that we're like, what? That's it's going to be gone.
bonkers.
In lieu, all right. So now it's time for Kevin's pop quiz.
Oh God, there's no math, is there?
Nope, no math.
Thank God.
No math. No geography.
Oh, thank God. Okay, good. I'm good. Let's go.
Between 5 and 15 points possible for each of these 3 questions. Wow. Once the final score is tabulated, it will be posted on our website along with the current standings among the top 100.
Oh my God, this is going to be embarrassing. Go.
Here's
I
the
need
good
to
news.
win. I need to win.
Yeah.
Who's top at this point? Riser?
It's not fair to say.
Okay.
Question number 1.
Yeah.
Sammy Davis Jr. or Ann B. Davis?
Sammy Davis Jr.
Correct. Question number 2. Carl Weathers or the weather in Carlsbad?
Carl Weathers.
Of course. Last question. Keith?
No.
3 out of 3. Wow.
Yeah, so you know all that pressure you felt with the build-up?
God.
Yeah.
I think you get people with the title of it being Kevin's pop quiz. Like you hear the word pop quiz and immediately you just freeze.
Panic.
I know. I'm in 6th grade language arts class, and I haven't read the chapter.
Yeah.
And I'm desperately
reoccurring-
asking Nancy Hurwitz, like, just tell me the normal. What happens? Like, Finney dies? Like, what?
Isn't it astonishing you remember the name Nancy Hurwitz?
Nancy Hurwitz, she was the smartest girl in
At what age?
5th grade.
5th grade.
And we would all not have read the chapter, and we would all turn to Nancy.
Well, she was your
and go,
Cliff Notes.
Nancy, please,
And if
please
Nancy
tell us.
knew the power
And
she had.
she went to Harvard. Nancy was like the real deal, and we all wound up making Hellboy movies.
Half of that class is Nancy's responsible for getting into the next year. is what you're
Seriously,
saying.
but she always would tell us like all the events, and then of course the teacher would ask like, "What side of the nickel did the thing?" And you're like, Nancy would never have told us that in 5 minutes. Like he always knew that Nancy was telling us all.
Oh, wow. He went outside Nancy.
Yeah, he's
One
brilliant.
of my reoccurring stress dreams is high school. I'm in high school. I didn't go to class all week.
Nope.
Mrs. Gonzalez's statistics class. We always had a quiz on Fridays. and you had to take it regardless of whether you were there a week or not because she.
What a nightmare.
Well, because she would drop like your lowest two tests, she just wouldn't count.
Okay.
But so you would be forced to take it regardless, and it's always that same dream. It's always wasn't there a week, had to go to Mrs. Gonzalez's stats class, had to take the pop quiz, didn't know anything on it, always. And usually it's...
Are you wearing no pants too?
In the dream?
Yeah. But it's usually, and that's the other thing, like I'm always running late because I can't like figure out like what to wear, and I'm always driving my same like 86 Pontiac Sunbird, and I can't find a parking spot.
Oh my God.
Like always, it's always the same dream.
This should be a segment on the show where we ask the guests to share any stress dream that is
Or reoccurring dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my most
So let's see how it
recurring
goes.
dream.
Do you have a recurring?
I actually
Sure.
used to have. Oh God, this used to terrify me. Like this is actually kind of serious. I used to have a dream, and it was so vivid
Of course.
that I would wake up and still be shaken. But the dream was that I had murdered someone. And it wasn't really. It was complicated, but I murdered them.
I have that dream all the time.
And I was convincing my friends to not tell the police.
Wow.
And they were like, Dave, like, we love you, but we have to tell the you murdered someone. I was like, no, man, like, you don't know the ins and outs. And like, let me tell. But I would wake up like feeling so guilty and terrified. And like,
Was the murder premeditated or just something that happened?
It was like a little bit of both.
Oh, wow.
But it's funny because
Did the person change that
I would always wake up before they sort of made their decision. But it was funny because a guy made this movie called Felon, which was like literally my nightmare, where a guy breaks into his house and he grabs a 2x4 and chases the guy out. But he's so adrenalined up that he hits him on the back of the head as he's in the front yard. And then the DA is very sympathetic. The guy broke into your house, but you got to go to prison for a year because of manslaughter. And then he's
got to kill him inside the
and
house.
then he's on the bus and somebody shifts him and gives him the shank and it's like, don't tell anybody. And then he's in the shoe and then you know what I mean? It's like this nightmare of like
spiraling.
Yeah. And I was like, I said to him, I met him and I was like, that is my nightmare. That like I'll go to prison and then I'll get like in a gang and like I mean like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh God.
It was kind of played pretty well in
The Night Of.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. That was very potent.
Because they make you sympathetic to your central character who is then corrupted by
exactly.
The
he has to like transport the heroin and all that stuff. And the thing about that situation being somewhat dodgy, but you're not exactly sure whether or not he did it.
Yeah, but still relatable.
Yes,
because he's an everyman.
Yeah.
In some regards, while being part of the immigrant situation that is the melting pot of America until the current administration. And then it's apparently some sort of cleansing is happening. Sam, you had a follow-up question, right? No? Yes, sir. Oh, interesting. That seems like you always had in the past. I don't know why we're coming up snake eyes on
We
this
should have
roll.
directed it at Sam, our technical director.
So do we talk lastly about either one of the following?
Okay.
And that's up on you. So
Yeah,
just here are the options.
Okay.
So we can talk about either your time in the following projects.
Oh.
War of the Worlds,
Okay.
The Green Hornet,
Okay.
working with Diane Keaton and Bill Condon's Tilda. These are difficult choices now. Knife Fight with legend Rob Lowe, or Newsroom with Aaron Sorkin, and lastly, The Snitch, or just Snitch, actually, with Dwayne The Rock, hopefully our next president.
That's a good question.
You left out State of Play.
I did.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's see. Which one do I want to talk about? I'll talk. Let's see. Well, this is a good question.
Too many options is the problem. It's like a Cheesecake Factory menu.
Juicy question. I mean, I will tell some little stories from War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds, I was cut out of.
Sure.
I had a scene with Tom Cruise in a bar before the War of the Worlds begins. Basically, he's a dock worker, and he kind of ends his shift, like he works the night shift or something, so he ends it at 7 a.m, and we go out drinking. And then he, at this bar, forgets his kid and goes and rushes out. We have like a scene, and then he rushes out and goes and meets his kid. And his wife is like, "You're late. You're always late." Like,
sure.
And instead, the movie goes from him at the docks, and then like he's doing something, and then he just goes right, and his wife's like, "You're late," because I like to think it wasn't it wasn't cut because I was terrible, but who knows? It was cut because of time and story and stuff. But I will say that it was there was a couple funny things about that.
First of all, to set the scene.
Yeah.
You're acting opposite one of the biggest movie stars in the world.
Yes.
And you're being directed by one of the most historically successful directors.
Correct.
So no pressure on you.
No, exactly. I was young, and I was cast off tape, so I never even met any of these guys. And I showed up, and it was like a crazy situation. Like I showed up like maybe an hour early or something.
And you're talking about over $100 million big top circus.
Yeah.
Right, craft service for 800 people.
And I don't remember anything about having lunch that day.
Nope.
And I feel like it was a long day, and I don't know.
Must have had lunch.
I was scared. I was very scared. And I remember like they did nothing to allay that fear. Because I remember we were on set like an hour before, me and this woman who was playing the bartender. And like, Tom sort of entered like literally off the helicopter. Like the helicopter descended.
That's right.
That he was doing hair and makeup, and just sort of stepped off and walked in and did the scene. It was like insane.
Super enthusiastic.
And then like after the scene, I think we shook hands and he got on the helicopter. And like, it was like I have to go do a conference, and it was bonkers. But I remember a couple things. I remember that I was sort of flirting with the woman playing the bartender. Again, I gave that big speech, and then here I am. This was like 15 years ago, but I was flirting with the woman playing the bartender, and
by the way, flirting is still legal. It should always be so.
I agree. Yeah. But I was, and then Tom Cruise showed up on set, and I thought she kind of like thought I was cute. And then Tom Cruise showed up on set, and I was
less.
I was not very. Suddenly, I was like not very.
And
cute.
you were surprised by this.
I was very surprised and upset by this. And then I remember we were trying to get. This was funny because there was a shot. Oh, first of all, working with Spielberg was kind of amazing because like the way he thought about things. We were talking about the shots that he was setting up, and part of the scene was like Tom playing pinball. And then like losing his quarter and coming over to the bar and being like, I want my quarter back. And I was like this guy, like he's come on, like I want my quarter back. And Spielberg encouraged that, by the way.
Sure.
Like he was a guy. The scene was a bit tight, a bit rigid, and he was like, he came over, whispered in my ear. He was like, when Tom comes over and says like he wants his quarter back, just like do like your worst Tom Cruise impersonation, like I want my quarterback thing. And I was like, that's. So he came over, like, and we just shot it, like it was just improv in the scene, like but he came over, and because the scene was like, this guy's like a jerk, but instead he comes over, he goes, I want my quarterback, and I was like, I want my quarterback, I want my quarterback, I want my quarterback, and he started laughing. But I remember that there was a sequence where. Oh, he was talking about shooting. Like he was shooting the pinball machine,
right. And
then he said that if it had been that Tom Hanks movie in the airport,
The Terminal,
he would have shot this fish on the wall. He was just talking about how in each movie the things that he shoots and the things that he finds, and even in this bar there was like a fish on the wall, and he would have I would have shot the hell out of that fish. Like I would have had to have that fish like everywhere, because I guess there's something about the fishbowl quality of him being in the. So there's all these like sort of little things, and then there was one shot where they needed an extra at the end of the bar to be in the center of frame as they were shooting over the extra.
Okay.
And they had this guy, and he was too big, and Spielberg just ran in there and was like, no, he needs to be like this. And he sat there, and the DP was like, that's great, it's perfect, with Spielberg standing there. And so he was like, okay, we have to find that guy. And we were all like, you should do it. Mm-hmm. Like, just sit there. You should do it with the hat and everything. And he got really like, he was like, I'm never in my movies. And I guess that's a thing of his. Like a lot of guys, directors will put themselves as extras in something, but like for him, it's like really serious. Like
that
he doesn't want to
be.
Yeah, he
was
doesn't.
it Janusz?
Janusz.
Oh,
yeah.
My God.
And Janusz also did an extraordinary thing that I thought was so sensitive, where he had a big emotional scene. He was telling me about this with the reunion of Tom and his wife in the movie at the end of the movie, and it was a huge push, and it was like a spin around and all this stuff. and he did it with a robot. I was gonna say robotic, and then I wanted to go robot, and I stopped in the middle and I said robot.
You did.
Yeah.
So he did it with a robot camera so that it came in and it swirled around. But part of his reasoning for that was that it was an intimate scene and he didn't want another human being to be there.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, that's so sensitive as a DP to think that way.
Sure. Those of you listening, DP, of course, stands for double penetration.
Oh, my God.
Double penetration.
That's right. Very sensitive of that
Very
to happen.
Super sensitive. And these are the times, these are the modern times we live in. We want to be super sensitive and respectful to not just the women.
But
Hey, double penetration does not necessarily mean female.
Correct. Continue.
I'm not. I don't exactly. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
Portals for 400. Alex?
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. So that was my experience.
That's pretty great,
War
man.
of the World. Oh, and then this is the best story. This is the
Alrighty.
best story. So I did that. I was a day player. I shot that. Blah, blah, blah. And you know, it's a big Tom Cruise movie. It's like all these moving parts. And I was a day player. And then I did Revolutionary Road, and I met Spielberg at the reading, the original reading for Lincoln.
Holy
for
shit.
And it was different actors in the part at that time, but we all read it like in New York.
Okay.
And I met him during that. He came over to me and he was like, David, I just want to say, because DreamWorks had produced Revolutionary Road.
Oh, great.
And so he was like, I think you're really terrific, and I think you're so great in the movie, and I really love you, and I hope we get a chance to work together someday. And I shook his hand. I had already shot War of the Worlds.
Right.
and I shook his hand, and I said,
did you make the
and I
choice
shook his hand,
not to mention?
I shook his hand, and I said, me too.
Oh, great! That is the actor's responsibility to answer that way. What could possibly benefit you from saying, no, greatest guy ever, thank you for participating in show business, but you're an idiot. You're wrong, and you need to, and I need to be the one to correct you. Let that be the lesson.
I gotta say, that almost tops the a round of golf with John Hamm.
Yep.
This is he and John Hamm played a round of golf, and then some years later they meet again. John says, hello. Kevin says, nice to meet you. John says, we played a round of golf.
By the way, some years later when we met was actually on this show.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
that
He was
on
a
air?
guest on this show. It was on camera.
was on camera?
Me saying, listen, we're such great fans of the show. This is like season 2 of Mad Men. We're such great fans of the show, and I'm such a great fan of yours. It's just so great to just meet you. And he said, actually, we met before. And I went, oh, fuck me. When did that happen? Thinking we met at a party or something. He said, we actually played 9 holes of golf together.
How could you?
What are you talking about?
But
9 holes.
But this isn't, you directed me in a movie.
Nope.
We spent 8 hours on a set to get, no.
Nope.
No, nothing like that.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Listen, you're very kind to carve us into your 10-day visit to these Los Angeles areas. I don't want to keep you any longer. We're all going to Arby's, not a sponsor of the show afterwards. You're certainly welcome to join us.
Just a fan.
Hey, it's on me.
Yep.
Actually, it's on Arby's.
Hey,
That's right.
No, seriously.
He has a gift.
you have passes? Oh my God!
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the kind of swag that you get.
This is-
for.
That's what Sam calls a
This is the
fistful
pull.
of fun.
This is the pull I have online.
Wow! Yes.
Meanwhile, I tweet about it, not tweet, but like I Instagram about Arby's all day long, and they don't send me anything.
Yeah, take that, Arby's. Thank you, David.
I'm their biggest fan, and they do not care.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to talk to you guys, have a nice, relaxed conversation.
Right.
It's really great. It's a great format. I love this. I love this show.
Well, thank you for sharing as much as you could. We're going to have, let's see, it's what?
Okay, it's Wednesday.
January, middle of the month. So there'll be many months before you see script 1 for season 3, right? Do you meet with the Duffer soon to talk about season 3?
I do, yeah. I'm going to go into the room and I'm going to discuss what I should start working on.
Right.
But I probably won't see a script till.
My guess
probably till March.
is 85. They're going to be into Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh!
Wow.
know,
are you
wasn't that also
willing?
84?
Is that your final answer?
Are you going on the record? Are you going on record because you're 1 for 1?
84?
You're batting 1,000.
I believe it was 85. Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, because
I
we're
don't
in
have a
85 now.
Yeah.
I say they're big out of Africa fans.
Interesting. Washing the hair.
No, Back to the Future. Are we kidding?
Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
is Back to the Future 85?
Hell yes.
Wait, what month though?
Late.
It had to be summer.
Summer or I think it might have been in October.
Wow,
release.
interesting. Okay.
Okay.
All right,
That's
well-
the precedent.
I'm gonna take
All right.
I'm gonna take Back to the Future over
Yeah,
Revenge of
absolutely.
the Nerds.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh.
Because it might be a little too much. I feel like Revenge of the Nerds might be too mature
Yeah.
for them. They'll identify with it later.
Yeah. Maybe the teens, like maybe
Right.
Steve Harrington is,
Yeah.
Well, he's not a nerd. Who would I?
He would make fun of
No,
it.
but he's friends with the villains in
Yes.
that movie. Like he's
Yeah.
the frat boys.
In fact, before we leave, let's just check that one more time. Nope,
Oh,
no
there you go.
comment from Joe Keery.
Thanks, Joe.
Interesting.
Thanks, Joe.
That'll be a fun conversation later.
July 3rd, 1985.
Is when the movie came
It was
out.
Back to
Yeah,
the Future.
Back to the Future.
Yeah,
Summer.
so it's gonna be
Summer, there you go.
So if you're back in school
Wow.
in the fall of 85,
You're
It's
talking
gonna
about,
be all about Back to
still
the
talking about it.
I'm actually writing that down.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. We want to thank our guest, David Harbour, very much. We'll keep you abreast of all the goings-on of Things and Stranger. To Sammy and Jamie, thank you both for being here for the first time ever at the Earwolf Studios as a team. Sam, our engineer, God bless you and your family, if you're still in contact with them. And we want to thank Corey Levin in Post. Very dark. Yeah, we're going to dedicate that comment to Hellboy. Until next time, and as always, get out of my face.